Sup, bitches?
How was your week?
Not much really happened, just doing uni stuff to be honest.
I was just working with Brie at Dolan's.
Sweet, I guess his work can smell burning every day.
Oh, haha, says the guy whose mum still cooks for him.
That's not true. I cook a lot of different stuff. And I own my own place.
Alright, you lot. No staying up late tonight. Especially you, young man. Alright, good night. And no strange noises!
Pretty hot roommate you got there. Mind if I ask her out?
Oh, fuck off.
Remember that pizza party? And she gave us those pizzas that one time and she fell over? Fuck, I didn't know where to look.
Oh yeah, I remember that, lol.
Oh yeah, do you remember when we used to talk about scary stories?
Since it's Halloween, does anyone know any scary stories? Urban legends? Creepypastas?
Creepypasta?
Oh yeah, that was that frickin' clown guy that used to scare the crap out of Lucy.
Oh no, I still have nightmares about Laughing Jack. Can we talk about something else, please?
Do you remember Matt used to tell those stories?
To be fair, he was a good storyteller. Shame he didn't carry on with it.
Oh yeah, I still have the recordings. Do you want to listen?
Yeah.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Our story begins with a boy named Mitch who had just moved into a new house with his family for about a week. He felt that he hadn't been given the full details on the property, as he thought he could hear mice scuttling across his ceiling every night when he turned the lights off. But he had already searched his loft and noticed that there was nothing unusual to be found. Then suddenly one night Mitch woke with a terrible feeling of dread, as if someone was watching him, but he had no idea where they were watching him from. But he could just feel a pair of eyes peeling to every move he made in his bed. He decided to shake this feeling off, as it could have just been inserted into his mind from a nightmare he had just woken from. The next morning he asked his family if anyone else had a strange dream last night, to which his brother said that he had a nightmare which was similar sounding to Mitch's. Mitch's parents blamed this on the fact that this was a new house. Maybe they were just a bit unfamiliar with the environment that they had moved into, so they should explore the house today, so they can see that there was nothing strange about it. Mitch's parents then told Mitch that they had to go and visit Auntie Carol, because the doctors had told them that this might be the last time they see her before she passes away. So Mitch's parents left, leaving Mitch on his own. As they felt he was old enough to take care of himself, Mitch decided that he wanted to quell his fears of the house, so Mitch explored the living room, the dining area, and the kitchen. Just as Mitch was about to start exploring the garden, he noticed a mysterious black substance leading up to the outside door. Mitch then saw that none of this substance went inside of the house. From this, he decided to relook over all the locations to see if he could find this substance anywhere inside the house, which he'd previously looked in, but there wasn't. Until he reached his bedroom door handle, which was coated in it. Mitch then called his parents and told them everything he had seen, to which they said to make sure that all the doors and the windows were closed, but reassured Mitch by saying that it was probably just their dad not being clean and leaving his gunk from the garage everywhere. Mitch begged them to come back, but they said they were too far away to come back now, and Mitch was getting too paranoid about this situation. With no money and no friends, Mitch turned to alcohol for his solution. He set up his phone to record anything that happened, hiding it in some kitchen roll in the kitchen. He got completely drunk on anything he could get his hands on. That night, he slept without any disturbance, apart from the feeling of the room vibrating and rotating. The next morning, he woke with a searing pain in his head and an urge to be sick. He spent most of the morning in the toilet bowl. When he lifted his head from the resting place of his insides from the night before, Mitch wanted to see if his phone had picked up anything unusual from the night before, to which he picked it up and saw 3 items had been recorded on the camera. The first was a video which showed a creature dressed in darkness, with a light blue mask of ocean, with eyes serving as trenches. The biggest searchlight could not reflect the glimmer back if they were to look into those endless eyes. This figure would have appeared to have moved the camera upstairs, as Mitch recognised that this was the top of the staircase and not the kitchen that he placed it in. This meant that this creature must have known where Mitch placed the camera and left it back in its original position when he looked there in the morning. He could have sworn no one else was around there when he placed the camera in the kitchen roll. Mitch then went on to the second piece of recorded media, which was a photo of the creature looking down at the camera. The final piece showed the creature walking out of the house with something in its hands. The camera was placed back into the kitchen, A decent amount of time must have clearly passed since their last video, as daylight could clearly be seen in the background of the video. Mitch put his phone to the side to see if this creature had left any pieces of evidence outside, to show that this creature was in fact real. Mitch leaned down to the floor and noticed his hand had a thick, black liquid over it. Mitch then realised what the searing pain in his side belonged to. The gift the creature had given him was in fact his kidney.
Pretty hot, honestly.
Just as good as I remember. Do you have any other stories?
I'll bet you haven't heard this banger. It's about a kid named Gordon. He wore a white hoodie and he smoked 14 cigarettes a day. Now, these three guys, Adam, Dan and Greg, they all picked on him until one day he was sick of it and he wanted to call upon the lunar gods and become Jericho the Killer. Now, he implanted the smile onto his victims and then he pulled out his massive fucking cock.
Oh, come on, man. That's the type of stuff that ruins the stories.
Then he'd start fucking his girlfriend and then Slender Man would come out and join him and then...
Please shut the fuck up, bro. That's so cringe.
Nah mate, you're the cream of the cringe, calling your girlfriend princess in class.
Sorry to interrupt your cringe contest, but have you heard of the Harbinger experiment?
No?
No?
Yeah, neither have I. It's Matt's most recent recording. Shall I press play?
Yeah?
Hello, if you're hearing this, then you're hearing from the last survivor of a project created 4 years ago called the Harbinger Experiment. It all started when I met this man, who I'm going to refer to as Zimmerman. He said I was incredibly talented for my age, and asked if I wanted to change the world of science. Of course, I said yes. I asked him why he didn't want to hire someone with more experience. He said that he wanted to keep it off the books, as we wouldn't be using conventional science as we knew it. Zimmerman hired a team of around 10 to 15 people to work on the project, including myself. We had never met each other before we entered into the containment zone. The containment zone was based somewhere I can't disclose, but I can tell you that it was blocked off by manhole cover to prevent anything from the experiment leaking to the outside world. The manhole was the only way in or out, and it led directly to the central control room. The central control room was laced with these giant fans, which led to this massive window in which the control room could clearly see the patient rooms in front of it. The staff was a mixture of professions, but it seemed that you were either security or maintenance as your main job. The next day was when the test subjects arrived. An old man, a young woman, and a boy, who was around the same age as me, all believed that this test they were participating in was some kind of mental test to see what the human body would do if it was left in isolation for several days. And once the test was done, Zimmerman would pay them handsomely. This was not the case, however. Zimmerman didn't tell any of us what the test actually was until all of the test subjects were in their cells. Then, he told us the details about the experiment. He told us he wanted to open a portal to the metaphysical world of the supernatural. He wanted to do this by injecting each of the subjects with a serum that would trap the spirits of this entity once it had entered the human body. We watched from the control room at the cameras in each of the cells. Zimmerman began to chant different phrases and languages into the microphone, with what seemed to be Japanese and German spoken the most. The test subject seemed to grow more distraught the more he continued, as if they could see something that we couldn't see. It seemed to be affecting the patients in different ways. The old man was swiping away at his arms like there was ants crawling all over him. The woman cowered in the corner of the room as if something was surrounding her and getting closer, and the boy just seemed to be holding his breath while standing perfectly still. That was until 10 PM. Then all the test subjects laid on the floor and seemingly fell asleep. Then we were also allowed to go to sleep. When we woke, we all went to the control room. Zimmerman stood there, looking at the monitor intensely, like his eyelids were held by strong wires. Unflinching, unmoving, totally fascinated and focused with what he was observing on the monitors. On monitors 1 and 3, there was nothing but pure static. However, on monitor 2, there was the lifeless shell of the old man. He lay there, hands clinging to his face, his skin shriveled and crisp to the point where it looked like he was a cocoon. Zimmerman shut off monitor 2. Zimmerman did not care that he was dead. He only seemed to be mildly annoyed by his willingness to be overcome so easily. Then, monitor 3 came back on. A boy my age turned into this being that was too big for the test subject's uniform. This creature's features could not be determined, as it just seemed to be a mass of darkness with the test subject's clothes attached to it, stretching down to the floor, with what we assumed were its arms and legs. Zimmerman looked visibly terrified and immediately scrambled all of the security guards to go to the cell and eliminate this creature. So, 4 security guards went. We saw the door open from Monitor 3, then the creature leapt from its room, and all we could hear was the screams of the security guards along what seemed to be endless gunfire. The gunfire finally ended with the ringing of bullets and the clanking of equipment being quickly moved around at a high pace. The security guards came back with the body of one of their own. He had deep scratch marks across his skin, like a blade had cut deep, drawing out pieces of flesh like cake at a party. His face resembled that of a scarecrow with so many lines and holes visible. The 3 men left alive seemed to be unharmed with only minor injuries, whilst the third was barely able to walk. We hoped that the creature in cell 3 was dead, but no one was willing to go and investigate. I went back to look at the monitors to see if anything new had happened. Monitor 3 was still static, whilst Monitor 1 showed a creature similar to that in cell 3, looking directly at the camera. The only reason that I knew I was watching a live feed from the camera was that the light in the corner of the room was still flashing. There was next to no chatter in the control room. We all just sat there, petrified, unable to leave. Zimmerman had ordered that anyone who tries to leave will be shot, so we all sat there, in silence, waiting, until a faint sound started coming from somewhere. It sounded like a song at a very quiet volume, being played from a speaker very far away, until an hour later, everyone could hear it. Zimmerman told everyone that this song was what the test subject reported to be most afraid of in a previous test with Zimmerman. A song used in a supposedly cursed commercial by Kleenex that aired in Japan. The song got so loud that we had to shout over each other, and then everyone's eyes gravitated towards the monitor. The creature disappeared. The creature then appeared in the control room, holding Zimmerman over his head, stretching him as far as he could go. He was split in half by the creature. Chunks of Zimmerman were thrown across the control office, and the creature started tearing up the control room and everyone inside it. Everyone was running towards the escape ladder. I hid under the table as people's guts were piling up. I decided to take a run for it and go to the ladder. I ran up the ladder as fast as I could, barely being able to catch my breath as people tried to cling onto the bottom of my shoes. I finally reached the top and climbed out the manhole as I saw other people minutes away from escape. I couldn't risk it. Just off the manhole locking it, I could hear the shrieks of the creature and the screams of the people who I was just working with. I managed to go back to my home and, well, nothing's happened for a couple of years now, but I can hear that song. It keeps getting louder every day. I think I see the creature, but it's not it. I've been hiding in my room for the past couple of days now. I know soon I'll have to go outside and find some food, but if you're hearing this, just...
Well, good night.
They leave their houses just for a short while. They walk by the grass and they look at the grass. They look at the sky. It's going to be a fine night tonight. It's going to be a fine day tomorrow.
クリネックスティッシュです。